What we have here today is a 1940 Maytag Model 72 twin cylinder washing machine engine that I picked up, and we're gonna try to get it to run. Everything seems to be turning over well. It's not stuck. I've only got one spark plug that it came with. Seems like it has decent compression. Can't really tell because I don't have a spark plug in this side yet. But I put the spark tester to it. We put the drill on it, and it doesn't seem to be making spark. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna pull off this flywheel and see if I can clean the points. And we'll see if everything actually is in there, including the condenser coil. The wires are here for both sides, so I'm assuming the coil's in there. That doesn't necessarily mean that, though. It could just be the wire stuck in there. Let's get that flywheel off and take a look. So we're gonna pull the flywheel off and see what's going on in there. All right, let's bring you in and take a closer look. We've got our condenser here, our points. Everything looks really original. The coil, nothing's been replaced in a very long time at least. So I'm gonna try to get in here and clean the points and see if that makes a difference. Most likely though, this condenser is bad, and I can order a new one and put that in. So let's see what happens when we clean the points. Just gonna run some sandpaper through here. Get those good and clean. And then I've also noticed a bad connection here. This is loose, so I think I'm gonna cut this. We're gonna trim this wire down a little bit and then get some clean wire there to wrap around this part of the coil. This connection seems to be good. It looks like somebody soldered it, but the connection between this spark plug clip and the continuity here was not good. So when I ran the multimeter on there, I wasn't getting good continuity. So I trimmed this off. I'm getting some fresh wire here. We're gonna clean this up and re-crimp this connection. And you can see right now, I've got good continuity on this wire. Right there, I've got good continuity here, but I don't like how loose that connection is. So we'll re-secure that. But this connection on this wire is good to that connector for the spark plug. So that's next, is just re-crimping this on here. And we're gonna try to get this running with this original equipment here and see if we can do that. And then eventually maybe look at replacing this stuff and restoring this. Also, I checked my gaps on the points here. It says right here on this backing plate, 0.020. So I've got that. The gap seems fine. the most open point, so that's good. So we went in and cleaned the points. I've got good connection to the coil, and both of the spark plug wires have good connection to the coil. So let's throw this flywheel on and see if we get spark this time. All right, we're gonna toss our one spark plug back in. All right, we're gonna connect our spark tester here. Nothing. Let's try it with just the spark plug. Well, we either got a bad condenser or a bad coil, so we'll keep digging in. So I did a test on the coil. We've got our multimeter here. I'll show you. So when you touch these leads together, I've got good continuity. I should have good continuity from one end of the coil to the other, and I don't. So I just get the OL on the reading here for open line. So I think this coil is bad. So I'm gonna get a new coil and new condenser. But in the meantime, I plan on restoring this. So let's start breaking it down, start cleaning it up. First, I want to take off the base here, the gas tank, and see what that looks like. I already sent the camera in there. It's definitely pretty corroded, so I think I'm gonna seal it and clean it up and reseal it with some fuel tank sealer. There we go. Tank is off. That's not too bad. That'll clean up pretty good. This is aluminum, I believe. Maybe? No, maybe not. Got your plug in the bottom. Here's your fuel pickup. Let's see if we can get this out so we don't damage that. Can hear that little check valve in there. Two bolts that hold this base onto the engine itself. Spray some PB Blaster on there. Plate off. Yeah, we're gonna get all this cleaned up and painted nice. All right, now we've got our 4 screws that hold this exhaust on. Let's get those removed. Looks like somebody might have been in here recently. These look really new. Somebody might have been doing some work on it and then realized they didn't want to buy a new coil maybe, and they didn't have spark. Okay. All right, off comes the exhaust. I ordered a new gasket set for this too. There's one screw in here that holds the flywheel and ignition backing plate on. So let's get that guy out of there. We'll get this ignition off. Oh, I think I might need to get that cam off first. So I'll probably have to take the coil off and the ignition pieces. All this ignition stuff off and the condenser off to get that cam off. We'll see here. Let's see if we can just pop one of the cylinder heads off and see how that looks. All right, here we go. Actually, it doesn't look too bad in there at all. Yeah, these look really good inside. Seems like there's a decent amount of play on the piston too. It's not bad. So that'd be great if I don't have to replace these. Okay, let's pull that other piston. Got the same thing, 2 screws on the top. I'm gonna make a punch mark on the cylinder so I can remember which one is which. All right, I just made 2 little marks at the bottom of this piston here. That one looks pretty good too. Nice and smooth. All right, so right now I'm gonna remove the pistons from the crank, remove the rods, but I want to keep the cylinder head and the rod and everything together. So I'm going to bag the cylinder head that I marked, which is this side, and we're going to remove that one. The piston here has these little retainers. They're not like the clips which you would normally see on a piston. And the shaft should just come out. So we're going to remove the piston on the other side, trying to get off the cap at the bottom of the rod, and I've noticed that this one is a flathead like the original. The new piston has the Allen screws. So like I said, somebody definitely replaced it at one time. There we go. I don't know why. Maybe one cylinder was completely worn out. It's pretty decent. There's the cap on that side. Just having a little trouble getting this these retainer caps out of here. But I'll mess with that at some other point, but at least we got this out of the engine. Yeah, so far everything seems real smooth with this crank. It's not bent. It's moving real nice. But we'll get this all pulled out of here. We'll get this all cleaned up inside, completely repainted, and new ignition on here, coil and condenser, and we'll get this back and up and running. So I got the key pulled out of the crank here, and then I'm gonna slide off the cam that runs your points. I just took a screwdriver. Once you get that key out, this thing just kind of pops out, or it should. There we go. Looks like a giant wedding ring. Now at this point, we should be able to slide off the backing plate. I will say this puller has come in handy with everything. Definitely worth investing in one. Yeah, and I'm not even having to put a wrench on it. Just turning it by hand. Pulls it right off. All right. There we go. We'll get this set aside and we'll get this all rebuilt eventually. Now to get the crank out of here, we've got this piece here needs to be unscrewed. That slides off. This is a little bit more difficult. There's a pin you can see in here that has to be punched out, and if that's never been taken out, that could be hard to get out. But I've had luck with using the an impact with this attachment on there, and you just hit that pin with that impact air wrench, and that'll get that going. So we will attempt that. I've tried hitting on it with the punch a few times and it doesn't seem to budge, but that is pretty much the block here. You can see, get you in closer. Crank looks pretty good. All right, so in order to take out this air inlet tube and the carb jet or mixer jet, there's two 1/8 Allen screws in the front here. See that guy? There we go. That wasn't too bad. For now, I'll just thread these guys back in so we don't lose them. All right. See if I can get this carb jet to pop out. I don't want to put too much pressure on this. Oh boy. Yeah, I might have to find like a piece of threaded rod to put in there that I can, you know, maneuver a little bit more. This is pretty delicate. I don't want to bend that. But what I'll do is I'll soak that with JB, or not JB, but PB Blaster. We'll let that soak for a while. All right, so to get this mixer jet out of here, I put a screw into the bottom of the jet instead of using the fuel pickup line to leverage it out. Just kind of turning it, wiggling it back and forth, and it seems to be coming out. There we go. Now I can get that nice and cleaned up. That looks super plugged. So now next will be the crank itself. I gotta get this off. So I bought a 5-inch, 1.5-inch socket. That should work. A 1/2-inch drive impact. That should be able to get that off. I just gotta figure out a way to secure it when I put the impact wrench on it. And that'll be it, and then the crank will come out and we can start getting everything cleaned up in the ultrasonic cleaner and getting things painted. All right, so I've got the block now broken down. The only thing in here is we've got this end on here that needs to be removed with this pin. So I gotta take that pin out. But first I think I'm going to try to get this side unscrewed. It's a 1.5-inch impact socket, which I found, which works perfect with the crank size. I'll show you that in a second. Let's get the impact wrench on here. Let's see if that'll come loose. Check that out. Broke it loose, no problem. Wonder if that's ever actually been off. Awesome. So that socket was worth it. I figured I'd do this instead of, see, it's the perfect length. Perfect length to fit over this crank. So that is in case you're doing this job, 1.5 inches. It's probably better than buying like a giant open end wrench. All right, so I took the grinder with the Dremel and I just ground off the top of that pin to kind of take off any mushrooming. And then I used this air chisel punch and just lightly hit it with a hammer, and I've already got it to pop out. So let's see if I can get that pulled out with a wrench and or a pair of channel locks, and then we'll get this crank pulled out, and that should complete the disassembly. All right, so now we're gonna try to get this ratcheting pulley side off here, or the kickstart side. Slowly coming off. Okay, so I was wrong. This shaft here is actually part of the crank. I thought that was one piece, so I can use the puller. All right, let's see if it'll just pop off now. There we go. And now to remove the crank itself. Should just slide right out the back here. Oop, that's so easy. All right, I just put some sandpaper on the edge of the crank there, and now it slides right out. I just had a little bit of a rust on the end, but yeah, we'll get this cleaned up nicely. And we'll check everything out. Looks pretty good. It's gonna be fun to get this all repainted. Cleaned up and repainted. Right, so now that I've got the engine broken down, I've got everything in a bin here that's rusted. And I'm using this rust dissolver, and just kind of coating everything as best I can, just spraying it on. And then I've got this paintbrush over here where I'm just gonna spread it and just make sure I get everything covered. This stuff works really well. So let's do that, and then once that's done, they're gonna go into the ultrasonic parts cleaner. Yeah, so after you leave the that rust remover, it gets the rust off, but it leaves this just lime, I'm assuming, like residue. So now I'm using Lime Away and just soaking it, pretty much just instantly dissolves it. And now I think instead of putting this stuff in the the ultrasonic parts cleaner, I think that thing is more for grease. At this point, it's just more about just kind of getting the scaling off and stuff like that. And so what I think I'm gonna do is just hit all this with the power washer and really just kind of blast it. And then what I'll do after that is hit it with some brake clean, and then we'll give it a coat of engine primer. So we've got the parts all cleaned up. I ended up doing the rust remover, the power washing, and then I ran everything on the wire wheel and got it cleaned up the best I could. And now I'm gonna do some Duplicolor gray engine primer, and then when that's all dry, we'll do the like the forest green color, the Maytag color. All right, so now that we've got the painting started, I've got the crank all cleaned up, put a little WD-40 on this, and I'm still having a hard time getting these, the governor screws out. I'm not sure if they're going to come out. I hope if it's set right, that should be okay. I just don't want to keep twisting on that and strip it out. So if it's set right, it's set right. We'll see how it runs. Got your bottom plate cleared, the ratcheting piece in the front, and the back of the cap for the back of the case. And then over here, got the block primed, cylinders primed, and then I started the green. I have a lot of this Fusion matte Spanish moss laying around. I think it's a great color. Very close to that Maytag green. I'm trying to keep this thing as original as possible. We'll probably get the decals for it and all that. It's looking pretty good. We've got most of the green laid down. And then I think I'm gonna go ahead and use that the 2-part epoxy clear coat and really give it a nice finish.
All right, now we're going to do the 2-part clear coat.
So while we're waiting for our clear coat to dry, we're gonna disassemble this ignition plate. Get all the old stuff off, get the plate cleaned up, get anything we're gonna put back on here, like the points cleaned up. And then we're gonna put in, well, first then, after that we'll paint the back side. Get this all cleaned up and painted silver. We'll leave the inside raw. Probably won't, there's no need to paint the inside. And then we'll replace the coil and condenser. So we'll get this coil removed. There's 2 screws holding the condenser on. Okay. Now that we've got our wires disconnected, we can pull coil out. And we'll remove our points. All right, there's our plate. I'm gonna get a nice bag to bag up all these parts so I don't lose them. Now we'll get this cleaned up and painted. So separating these two parts of the coil, I'm using a puller here. We've got the replacement piece, the actual coil itself, which is being replaced, but this part we have to reuse. So I've got this in here and I'm just running that part out with the, I'm sure you could probably use a hammer, but this is a much more smooth way to get it off. There we go. I've got some Pour 15 fuel tank sealer. We're gonna brush this on the inside of the tank. I got this cleaned up as best I can. And the top of the engine plate where the fuel goes. So we'll get that nice and sealed, and that way it won't corrode anymore. So there we go. We've got the fuel tank sealed. You wait about, I think like 72 hours before you can actually put gas in these. Before this is actually cured and can withstand the fuel. But I used it on my farm tractor, the Farmol A, and it seemed to really seal the gas tank well. All right, I've got most of the ignition parts cleaned up. I'm waiting for my paint to clear on the backing, or dry on the backing plate. So I'm gonna slide this new coil on, see if it goes in. Yeah, it slides on easily. So that was easy. And then this is the side that's up with these small tabs. I feel like at the bottom, those are the larger tabs. And you can see this indent here for the plate. So yeah, that was pretty easy. I thought I was gonna have to kind of force that on. So that's our new coil, and probably gonna clean up the points right now. And once my backing plate gets dry, we'll start working on putting that ignition system back together. So we've got the parts painted green and clear coated. I've just got these guys sitting up on the spark plugs drying. That's why they're like that. Tank came out pretty well. Just cleaned it up as best I could. It's just very pitted. It's like some kind of aluminum. Got our crank all cleaned up. The next project is the flywheel. We'll get that cleaned and painted like the gas tank. So the flywheel is all cleaned up and painted and clear coated. I cleaned up the back the best I could here. I read that I might have to grind down these ribs in order for the new coil to clear. So I might have to take the grinder in there and just take a little bit off, maybe 1/8 of an inch. Shouldn't be too difficult. For some reason, the new coils are larger than the old ones. And when you put this flywheel on, it'll hit the coil. And if you don't catch it, it can destroy it. So that's the flywheel. All right, so I got the coil on. This is the same direction that the old one was. So I'm assuming that's the right way. It doesn't say what direction to put it in the directions. And we've got our points cleaned up. Drop these guys back on there. All right. Got our spring in there. Next, the condenser drops in here, and we'll have this grounding wire go to that side, and then this wire will go up to the top of the points. I forgot to put my gasket under the points here, so I pulled them up, put this new gasket in. Here's the ignition all put together. The only thing I haven't done is added the spark plug wires to the side of the coil. So I think I'm going to use wire crimps and the clips that go on here to do that, to make it so I don't have to solder the wires on there. I heard it wasn't recommended to solder to these. Can ruin the coil. All right, so it's time to start reassembling the block here and the whole unit for that matter. But I've got new rubber seals in here and on both sides, so we won't get any air leaking in through the block and oil leaking out. So let's go ahead and grease up this crank really well and get it installed. Slide this guy in. All right, so I had to take my rubber seal out of this side and trim about that much out of the middle of it. And then I got it to fit because it was just too large. But now I've got a nice smooth seal there. I'm not sure about this side, if that'll fit or not. We'll see. All right, we got this side of the crank greased up. I've got my rubber seal in there. It's real smooth. I've got the block flipped over. We're gonna now install the mixer jet. So I got a little grease on there. And I've also got our Allen screw, that lock nut. So we'll kind of drop that in there. Make sure not to push it down too far. I think it's supposed to be just flush. I think that works. We'll Tighten this guy down for now. All right, there was some paint in here, so I cleaned that out really good with the Dremel. Just gonna grease this guy here. And now this should slide on the crank. And got our pin all cleaned up too. Look at that, it's a nice fit. Slides on and off. Now we're gonna take our pin and try to put that in. Let's grease this guy too. Nice. See that? It's sticking out about a 1/4 inch there. And I might just leave it. I might not tap it in all the way right now in case I need to pull this off again. Next will be the rods and pistons. And then once I've got those in, then we can put the bottom plate on and get the cylinder heads on. So when I bought this engine, it didn't come with the kick handle, the kickstart. So I found one, but I still need to go ahead and clean it. I'm just PB blasting these bolts and then get it cleaned and painted. I'll probably end up just starting the engine up with without it on there, just to see how it runs for this video. And then we'll get that kickstart put on there later. All right, so time to put in one of our pistons here. Got our connecting rod. All right, so I'm just gonna put a thin layer of grease on the in the bearing here, but not a lot. Just a little bit to help it with the dry start. So this one is this side. Whoa. Feels really smooth. Okay, I figured out what side goes towards the bottom. So this more slanted part goes towards the bottom. We've got grease on our wrist pin. We've got our wrist pin caps here. So we're just gonna put this guy in here. That's pretty much it. And then these wrist pin caps they just float in here. So for now, I'm gonna just put some tape over them until I actually put the cylinder, because the cylinder is what holds those in place. All right, so now we're gonna do the other connecting rod. We've got, this one actually has just the flathead screws. That other one was a newer one that had been replaced at some point, and that had the Allen bolts. Pop that guy on there, rotate it around, move it around here. Now, I think I made a mistake. I think it'd be easier to do this without this piston on. So I'm gonna pull the piston off. I got my other cylinder in here with the new piston rings. So we're gonna get that put on. Perfect. Now we should be able to put our new gaskets on and the cylinders. All right, so we're gonna put the gasket on and try to get these rings compressed in here. All right, I got the piston or the cylinder slid past. Slide that guy on. And then I'll go get my bolts. So I picked up these nice new cylinder head bolts. Kind of have like a brass look to them. Okay, I'm gonna pull these old rings off on the other side here, and we'll put the new rings on. Put a little WD-40 down there. All right, now that we've got our cylinders on, next we're gonna flip this guy over. We're gonna put our exhaust on. Let's make sure it's going in the right direction. So that, go there. So it needs to go this way. Yeah. Those guys on there. Oh boy. The base plate here, got a new gas cap. All right, snug these plate bolts up. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and pop this pin in on the ratchet assembly. Cool, not gonna get crazy. Leave it so it'll one day come out again. Next up, the air breather. Feed this guy in there, and there's a Allen screw that helps lock it in. All right, so now we're gonna put our ignition plate on. Okay, so I was told that the nomenclature, the numbers have to be to the outside, and then of course it'll line up with the key. Tap that guy on there. Sweet. That was perfect. Didn't have to force it or anything. All right, now we're gonna get in here and gap our points. So we've got it on the high spot of the cam. And tighten them down. There we go. See that? Zoom it out. See the points opening and closing. There they go, now they're closed. So I'm starting to work on putting the spark plug wires on the coil, and I went ahead and stripped this end of the spark plug wire. And what I plan to do is put one of these connectors on here, these crimp connectors, and then that will have make a nice connection right here. And what I'll do is when I crimp this on, we're gonna run this shrink tube over the end of that, so I'll have a nice connection there. So let's knock that out and I'll show you. So we've got our spark plugs hooked to the coil, and now I'm gonna put the flywheel on, and we're gonna spin it over and see if we got spark here with the spark tester. Okay, we got our points gapped, spark plug wires hooked up. We got the cam set, so let's slide this guy on, make sure we got good clearance. Doesn't feel like it's hitting or scraping, so that's good. Here we go, watch that spark plug tester. Tell me if we get good spark. Really good spark. You guys see that? That was strong. All right, let's watch this side, guys. Wow, yeah, really good. This thing's ready to run. All right, now that we have spark, this engine is ready to run. Got my spark plug wire just zip tied there. I'll cut that in. I need to get some kind of little clip that holds that spark plug wire. But yeah, I'm gonna mix up some gas, 16:1, and we'll see if we can get it to fire up. All right, here we go, guys. The moment of truth. Ha! Wants to go. Man, I think it wants to go. Come on. All right, so I got it to run for a little bit. Both cylinders are showing about 155, 160. So we know it's firing even on both sides. It's just doesn't want to stay running. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this project. The thing runs well. It took a little persuasion to get going. Once I got it running, I messed with the governor a little bit. It runs real strong. So next, I think we'll work on that Kickstarter and get the Kickstarter on there and see if we can get it started that way. Well, thanks for coming back to the garage, guys. This project runs a Maytag 72 1940. I really had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed watching the video in detail. Next, I will be going back to the Beetle. We'll be getting that engine re-cylindered and new pistons, and hopefully getting it back into the frame. So stay tuned for that. Thanks guys, appreciate you watching.